Okay, continuing my review of the DigiHUD Speedometer app. I'm heading further and further north into Germany here, and checking the location on Google Maps indicates we're at Ludwigsfelde in this shot. Speed's much lower than it was before, around 90 kilometers per hour or about 55 miles an hour. But when I switch it back on, it's up to 140 again, so I don't know what's up with that. I guess it accelerated while I was checking the map. Here, the later video, going much slower. There's Südkreuz, which is a secondary station in Berlin. Berlin actually has a number of these, because it has a very long history, of course, and it's a very big city. But this is the only one of 3 stops along the way: Bad Schandau, Dresden, Südkreuz, and then you end up in Berlin Hauptbahnhof. So, pulling out of Südkreuz. Now notice that the GPS signal is cut out, so the speedometer has frozen. We briefly get the signal back, maybe because the tunnel walls are thin or something. And then eventually we'll lose it again. But again, the train's not going particularly fast because we're going through the tunnels under the streets of Berlin. And I'm checking the trip odometer there after we've lost the signal. That'll be our final reading, 96K. And now I'm off the train. I referenced the train's identification board there. And then this is the next day testing the other speedometer. This is actually a GPS altimeter, or it's marketed as such, but it also is a speedometer. And it includes a lot of the same data that you saw in that GPS tester earlier. Now here I don't have any signal, and so I'm just testing the maps because I'm under Hauptbahnhof in this shot. So I'm trying to show off some of the other features. So you can call up a satellite map. It seems like there's an error where the hybrid map and the satellite map are confused. When you press the button for satellite, you get the hybrid. When you press the button for hybrid, you get satellite. But that's a Google Earth type of map. Anyway. And it should be a moving map when the GPS is working correctly. But I wasn't able to get the GPS working. As you'll see, Google Location Services actually is able to update the map so long as I'm near mobile phone towers. But there are basically there isn't enough accuracy for the speedometer to work. Here we're pulling out. Gives you an elapsed time there. And an odometer. Basically, this is a more sophisticated version, or a more sophisticated alternative to the DigiHUD speedometer app. So, the map view is cool though. I like that actually. Initially, I was worried this program didn't work or that it screwed up the GPS on the phone, because we're, moving right along here at a good clip, and it's still reading 0 and we're above ground. So it's frustrating actually. You can see the location services is trying to locate us according to the location of mobile phone towers and Wi-Fi points, but it's just not working very well. Jumping all over the place there, and obviously that can't possibly be accurate. So I try a few different settings eventually. First I wait for the GPS to actually kick in. When I tested it in the hotel, it took about a minute to get a fix on the position, so I figured I had to wait until the GPS finally got a fix and the speedometer started working. But it's actually more complicated than that, because we're up to the 3.5 minute mark and still no fix. So I switch on the tracking. I don't even know what the tracking really does, because you're being tracked anyway. It might have something to do with the graphics on the map, like leaving a trail where you've gone, maybe. But then I try to fiddle with the settings to make sure everything's working. First thing I do is I completely shut down and restart the altimeter app. I have problems with the touchscreen there again, as before. This time it was especially annoying because I was sort of in a hurry to get some readings, and it just kept refusing to respond properly. I tried dragging, I tried tapping, I tried pressing in different places. Just wouldn't work. And this is the same problem I have with touchscreens more generally. I'm not really blaming the Lark specifically, it's just a problem with touchscreen smartphones that I absolutely hate. I really would much rather have a keypad. But anyway, force stop, as in all Android applications. And then I'll reload. And give it another minute. And it now doesn't even have a fix on my position until I go up to Germany. So the map doesn't automatically move me to Germany. Then I test the DigiHUD again to see if it's the GPS that's giving me problems. And it seems as if I don't have a GPS signal. It's more the GPS than it is the altimeter app. I had suspected it was the app that didn't work. But then I was worried that I had a hardware failure. In the end, I figured out that the reason this doesn't work, and why I was struggling again and again, was that it was the old transceiver problem, that the GPS transceiver is relatively weak, and so if you operate it in the vicinity of a Wi-Fi, often the Wi-Fi will interfere with it and prevent it working. It's a very strange thing, but well, I wouldn't say of course, but I would say that if you have experience with Wi-Fi points, you know that they often interfere with mobile phone signals, and they often interfere, apparently, with GPS, I've now discovered. Which might be some of the reason why on the airlines they don't want you using a GPS or anything like that that is not, being used by the pilot. And they don't want you using a mobile phone, and they don't want you using really any kind of radio. And this illustrates why. And in summary, this train had Wi-Fi, whereas the train going north didn't. I also found that the GPS doesn't work very well in my flat, because in my flat I have Wi-Fi. And that's how I made the connection. I tried those testing apps I showed in part 1, and I walked around the neighborhood and found it worked fine outdoors when I was further away from the Wi-Fi points. So anyway, I finished my video by just completing the trip back to Prague. So here we're pulling into Dresden. We're pulling out of Dresden, actually. This is an abbreviated version of the trip back. And I gave up on the review. I'll get back to the altimeter review when I take my next train trip and see how it works then. So here's Decin, as you saw the castle there, or the chateau, in the night. Usti, the new Regio Shark. Sitting in the platform. Those are very new, actually. .363 class, I think. Pretty run-of-the-mill locomotive, anyway. With a ordinary weak leak, probably. Or possibly Eurocity, given this route. And here we're finally pulling into Hlavní nádraží, and that's it. Thanks for watching.